Item 1, opening prayer and statements of acknowledgement. Almighty God, we pray for your blessings upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the land and waterways now known as Manningham. Council pays respects to elders past, present and emerging, and values the ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges and respects Australia's First Peoples as the traditional owners of the land and waterways and across country, and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council also values the contributions made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public who have joined us in person and online to observe tonight's meeting. I would also like to acknowledge our former councillor, Dot Haynes, OAM, who's here this evening. I would like to advise that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event that your voice and/or image is broadcast by council. No additional recording of the meeting is permitted without council's consent. Council meetings are conducted in accordance with our governance rules. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda, calling it by number and by reading the title. I will then call for a mover and a seconder for a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. I would like to draw your attention to item 7 on tonight's agenda, public question time. Provides people with the opportunity to ask questions of council. Council has allocated 30 minutes for question time, and the process for public question time is set out in our governance rules. Questions must be received prior to the start of the meeting to be asked. Where we receive advance notice of a question in accordance with our governance rules, we will provide a verbal response to the question at our meeting. Questions we receive just prior to the meeting may be taken on notice if we don't have the information available to provide a meaningful response. If this happens, you will be provided with a written response to your question within 10 working days. Our governance rules provide that we will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. These rules will be enforced to ensure a broad range of topics and perspectives can be heard during question time. When it is your turn to ask a question, I will ask that you come forward to the lectern in the gallery. Before asking your submitted question, you will have 2 minutes to make a brief introductory statement. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to council through our normal channels. To ensure the efficient conduct of our meeting and maximum participation during question time, all question and answers shall be as brief as possible and no discussion will be entered into. Councillors and the gallery are reminded that question time is to be conducted in a respectful manner, having consideration to the diverse views of those present. Any disorderly conduct will be managed in accordance with our governance rules. Item 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. There are no apologies. Councillors, is there any requests for leave of absence? Item 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. I have no prior notifications of conflict of interest that have been received. Would anyone like to give a notice of conflict of interest? No. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
I'd like to move the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 26th of March 2024.
Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion.
Councillor Thomas Lightbody, did you want to speak to that? If that's no speakers, all those in favour? Oh, okay. I'll just ask, did you want to speak there? Do I have any speakers against? Do I have any speakers for?
I just want to note a commendable transparency measure in these minutes, where at the last council meeting we resolved to go to an EOI process on the quarry site and potentially the depot site, and as part of good transparency we resolved to make that report and that decision public in these minutes. So it's good transparency by Manningham. It was appropriate that the decision was taken in confidential given the sensitive nature of it, but it's also very appropriate that we make the decision public as the EOI process rolls out.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? If there are no other speakers, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 5, presentations. 5.1, Michelle Timms, Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Tonight, I'd like to acknowledge Manningham local Michelle Timms. Michelle was recently recognised for her tremendous contribution to women's sports by being inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Michelle began her professional career in 1984 at the Bulleen Boomers junior program. She played 285 games and won 5 championships over a 15-year career in Women's National Basketball League, WNBL. Michelle played for 4 clubs in the WNBL career, and that's Bulleen, Nunawading, Perth and Sydney. In 2005, Michelle was honoured the Women's National Basketball League with the creation of the Michelle Timms Cup. This cup is presented to the winner of the Bulleen Boomers Dandenong Rangers Derbies. Michelle's coaching achievements may be the most significant for the Boomers. She assisted head coach Tom Maher lead the team to their first Women's National Basketball League championship victory over the Canberra Capitals in 2010/11 season. Her latest recognition adds to Michelle's growing list of accolades, including, and bear with me, there are many of them, councillors. So first, a Member of Order of Australia in 2018, the Australia Day Honours for her significant service to basketball as a competitor at the national and international level. Next one, representing Australia at several World Championships and the Olympic Games in 1988, 1966, 1996 and 2000. Being named the Women's International Player of the Year in 1994 and 1996, receiving an Australian Sports Medal in 2000, and been included in the Sports Australia Hall of Fame in 2003, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2008, and the International Basketball Federation Hall of Fame in 2016. Please join me in congratulating Michelle on her incredible achievements and her ongoing contribution to women's sports. Well done, Michelle. Item 5.2, Anzac Day. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge one of the most significant days in our national calendar, Anzac Day. Anzac Day is a day on which we remember all Australians who have served and died in war and operational service, both past and present. It is a day for us to collectively give thanks to all those current and former members of our Defence Forces, the brave men and women who serve our country on a daily basis. We also acknowledge the losses and the sacrifices of their families. There will be several Anzac Day services around Manningham on Thursday. These include Doncaster RSL, dawn service at 6 a.m, Templestowe RSL, march commencing at 8:15 a.m, followed by the Anzac Day service at 8:30, and Warrandyte RSL march commencing 10:30, followed by the Anzac Day service at 10:45. It is a long-standing tradition that we take a moment to pause in silent reflection and to remember the sacrifice of those who serve this country. Please join me as we honour the men and women who have served and continue to serve with a minute's silence. Lest we forget. Item 6, petitions. There are no petitions this evening. Item 7, public question time. Are there any questions from the public this evening? There are no questions. Item 8, omission of urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 9, planning permit applications. There are no planning permit applications that require a decision of council this month. Item 10, city planning. 10.1, Manningham's Activity Centre Design Guidelines for Community Consultation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Anna Chen.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jeff Goff. Councillor Anna Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I have a lot to say. The document tabled tonight for endorsement for the purpose of community consultation is Manningham Activity Centre design concept. But why we need the design concept is Manningham has 2 major activities and 10 neighbourhood and 27 local activity centres. In our planning scheme, the Commercial 1 zone applies to all our neighbourhood activity centres. Commercial 1 zone was rolled out in 2013 to replace Species 1, 2, and 5 zones. The purpose of Commercial 1 zone is to deregulate retail and commercial development and allows investment in a much wider range of locations. The main effect of these changes is to create a more competitive retail environment. Under the Commercial 1 zone, previous permit requirements for commercial and retail uses have been removed, combined with all floor space caps for shops and offices. That change came into effect in 2013. Our Manningham residential strategy was endorsed in 2012, had not anticipated residential development in our neighborhood activity center. Also, Victoria's housing statement seeks to build 800,000 new homes over the next decade. In the meantime, Manningham's population is expected to increase by more than 18,000 people to more than 144,000 people. This means that we need more than 8,200 new homes. Therefore, Neighborhood Activity Center will play a very important role in providing Manningham's housing and employment growth. But the challenge is to accommodate growth while we enhancing the vibrance of centers for traders and shoppers and protecting the amenity of the public open spaces, neighborhood characters, and sensitive residential interfaces. Although planning permits still required for most buildings and works, the provisions provide minimal guidance to planning application and do not have any building height and setback requirements. The activity center's design guidelines will focus on the 10 neighborhood activity centers except Warrandyte Township. The Warrandyte Township Heritage Guidelines 2007 is the guiding document in managing the commercial area development in this area. Attachment 2 in the agenda paper is the build form and context analysis. It is the first step in the preparation of the design guidelines. It helps us to understand the context of each activity center, how it is used, and looks and feels. The design concepts have been developed to form the basis of the activity center design guidelines. It includes a series of things that relates to the build forms such as building height, residential interfaces, architectural presentation, public realm, sustainability, access, and car parking. It will provide a guiding principle for good design in our neighborhood activity centers. Community consultation will focus on the design concepts. If endorsed tonight, it will go out for stage 1 community engagement between April 24 and June 16. The design concepts and the build form and context analysis will be developed further to form the design guidelines. The draft will be subject to stage 2 community consultation in early 2025, and the guidelines will then be translated into design and develop overlay in the Manningham planning scheme in around late 2025. So I ask councillors' support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Councillor Jeff Goff, did you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam. Look, this is an important document for our community, and I'd like to thank our planning departments actually to have spent time working on these documents to go out to this public consultation. Some people would say that we do know that we've got Westfield, Doncaster, we know that we've got the Pines, they're the big ones. This next level of shopping centre is the local shopping centre for our community that often visited on a sometimes daily but weekly basis to go there. And I suppose that experience is one that needs to be good for our community. With all of this going out to public consultation, I hope people do look through it, because in many ways we are going to be looking at, I suppose, making those areas, if they do get redeveloped, a bit higher, having more concentration there. But there's also the added element that's being floated here is not just having to use it for a commercial reason, but having some residential in and around those areas as well as part of the commercial area. I certainly agree with in around, but we've got to watch that in anything that we write, and I don't know that it's included here yet, is the protection of commercial traders for the protection of their activity to be the priority, and it might be a little bit bigger than Manningham, but be the priority of any decisions that are made with regard to these centres. We're not going to have a vibrant commercial sector with local businesses, if we don't have the facilities that they can actually thrive in. And there are different sorts of centres. One are entertainment restaurant centres, and other centres are actual shops that sell things that people go to on a daily basis. And sometimes they don't have to be mutually exclusive, but sometimes they do. So we need to really have those discussions of how this is going to affect the actual retail sector, the small retail sector, because they are under the most pressure in any of these. I remember, it's not off the topic, but I remember doing a liquor licence for a place just opposite the Queen Victoria Market, and there was a whole lot of fuss about the fact that the Queen Victoria Market group, for the residents around the area, had a lot of noise, and they didn't want a liquor licence in and around there. And again, the activity and the noises at retail, especially if it's a green grocer or something, does have something that starts early in the morning, that they are protected in those activities in the designs that we have. So I hope that all the people in the shopping centres and around the shopping centres, but our community, have a look through this and give feedback to us.
Councillor Goff, that's time.
Yeah.
Did you want to?
Oh yeah, I will ask for an extension. That's all.
Do I have a mover? Do I have a seconder? All those in favour? That's granted. You've got another 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Councillor Deirdre Day Monte and Councillor Laura Main.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think it is important that we do actually analyse that, and in our stuff put it around. But it also has effect on interfacing houses around that commercial area. And that does put other challenges and pressures to us. And it's where we are really, in an ideal world, wanting a higher density of development in and around those areas in the long term, because it makes sense to have a shopping centre with lots of people living around. But that puts another pressure onto us, and that is to designing other livable assets in and around a shopping area, such as open space. So that puts pressure on us too. So all of these designs in the future we need to put into here, but it's the three elements are those three elements that we're looking at, and we're after feedback from the community with what is put here. Sometimes we might try and architecturally over-design things, and architecture is a fad and a fashion, and it does change. So what we might think is wonderful today mightn't be so wonderful tomorrow, but the actual functionality is the very most important thing in what we're trying to put through here.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any further speakers to the motion? I'll speak to the motion. I just want to congratulate the team in preparing the Activity Centre Design Guidelines for community consultation. I know just that this is addressing the planning context that we find ourselves in, with the next 12 years, Manningham needing to increase in 18,000 people. Our activity centres can accommodate growth, but we must protect our neighbourhood characters through the guidelines that are set out in these design guidelines. They look through the design, building height, street wall height, sunlight, residential interfaces, architecture, public open space, access, car parking, and sustainability. This is all to protect amenity, maintain livability, and protect our sensitive interfaces, as well as enhance vibrancy, as Councillor Goff was talking about. I encourage residents to engage and have their say on our activity centre design guidelines, as this sits within our Livable City strategy and our Vibrant Villages action plan. So I encourage my fellow councillors to endorse it for community consultation. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 11, Connected Communities. 11.1, Melbourne East Regional Sport and Recreation Fair Access Policy Report. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Laura Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm very excited to be moving this piece of policy. Gender equality continues to be a major barrier to women and gender diverse people who want to be involved in sport and access quality facilities. Over the past 2 decades, there has been significant government policy and legislative reform that seeks to address a systemic and long-term issue, and this is one of the pieces of that puzzle. As a woman and a lover of sport, this is something that is close to my heart. I've experienced my team's change room being the open outdoors, being pushed off training facilities for the men's team at a drop of a hat, and I've watched so many of my female friends drop off from sport when I know that with better conditions and a better culture, they would have stuck around. This policy speaks to the collaboration between council, aligned leisure and community stakeholders to ensure that the Manningham community delivers equal access and opportunity to all individuals, regardless of their gender. The key goals include participation, access to safe environments and facilities, representation in leadership positions, for example, the club committees, the coaches. This is an issue that I think is particularly important. Resources being equally distributed, addressing intersectionality in how we design our initiatives, eliminating systemic causes of gender inequality and discrimination, and finally, treating women and gender diverse people with respect and fairness. Manningham has already done some things to address this issue. For example, something I'm really glad to say is that we have, over the past few years, been updating our toilets and change room facilities to include girls and gender-neutral facilities. I know, also speaking from experience, it's not fun going to all the change rooms that are just all urinals, but more it's not fun. But more importantly, we are currently developing our own fair access policy, which will be largely guided by this regional document. So I'd like to thank the officers for their work in this area, and I'm looking forward to seeing this policy play out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Support everything the mover just said, and just also add that it was very sensible of I think it was 8 different councils in the East to work together as a good example of collaboration. We have a community of interest. We often share a lot of facilities, and I know we work with the Eastern region on a lot of data around access to sporting facilities and the like. The state government legislation in particular effectively was making it conditional on future capital grants for sporting facilities that councils have a credible and sincere and serious policy in this area. So we needed to do it, and we worked with our neighbours. And each specific policy will be slightly different for the particularities of each council, but this is the broad framework where we have all endorsed effectively a very similar policy, and look forward to the changes that will flow from that, and we will all be able to qualify for future grants because we'll have a complying fair access policy that the government will be able to see when they're deciding where to allocate capital grants for sport and rec in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers to the motion? If there are no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 12, City Services. 12.1, Capital Works Program, March 2024, Quarterly Status Report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert.
That the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Del Monte. Councillor Michelle Kleinert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the Capital Works Program quarterly report, and this is a report that, as of 31st of March, where we're at, with 27.76 million having been spent on capital infrastructure projects. That equates to about 5.4% of our total budget for this year. It's 182 projects that we've got in the plan, and I'd like to thank the Director of City Services and all the staff for their work towards this. It looks like that we'll hit our targets. Our target is that we meet over 90%, and the way it's tracking, it looks like that we'll hit around the 92%, taking into account that, you know, there are high degrees of issues, you know, with large construction contracts dependent, and approvals from external stakeholders and authorities. That's often the hold-up. So our team works very hard to put the projects together. It is quite a, I'm trying to think of the word, as Councillor Mayne would say, and I can't think of what the word is, but it's to do with it just being, it's a stretch, it's a big budget, and there is a lot that goes into it. And when we think about local government serves over 120 different services, we forget that from cradle to grave. There is a lot that gets done. When you look at the makeup, when we look at our council plan, where we're brought into resilient environment, vibrant economy, well-governed, healthy communities and livable places as an example, you'll see the report highlights where the money is spent, and across those areas there's a considerable amount. So I do say thank you to all the staff for their work and dedication. It's never easy, but we are seeing that sometimes there are things out of our control. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert. Councillor Deirdre Day-Montetti, did you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, just briefly, and Councillor Kleinert has done a good job in summarising where we're at. And maybe if I could also borrow from Councillor Stephen Mayne, I do think the transparency is excellent, and I would encourage anybody that's, you know, interested in where are my rates going, what works are happening, how much does it cost. There's a lot of information in here. I'm also, what I love about these reports, and that sounds a bit nerdy, but it's, you know, what can't be done and the reasons why, and what's being deferred. And as an example, you can start to see the impact of some of the North East Link project works that are now pushing out or removing the need for example, a cycling path or some works around Doncaster and Eyre Street. It also puts into words some of the projects that we see around, whether it's the maintenance works at Macedon Square or the project for the Historical Society. So I think it's a really great report for the community to have a look at how their rates are being spent, and I think it shows a really responsible approach by officers. So I think it's a very good report, and thank you again to Rochelle Quattrocchi and the team.
Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Anatin?
Well, I just want to raise a few highlights of this report. For example, our footpath construction is progressing very, very well, and with nearly all projects completed or on track. And this is extremely important for the improvements of the accessibility and connectivity across our neighborhoods. And another example is streetscapes. And the works at Macedon Square, Tunstall Square, and Jackson Court, including safety and amenity works, is on track or near completion. So these two examples demonstrate our commitment in our council plan to enhancing our activity centres and supporting traders to ensure thriving local businesses, as well as community accessibility and safety. We talk about again and again about good governance and transparency. So this capital works program is monitored by our infrastructure project management office. So through a very robust process to ensure the increased levels of governance, reporting, and transparency. And of course, some of the large construction contracts dependent on the external stakeholders and authorities that we have no control or very little control with. But I know that officers are continue working with these stakeholders to ensure we stay in the loop, and just in case any updates that may impact the project delivery, and also for a good work relationship will ensure the delivery of those projects. So again, can't say enough. Thank you.
Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Stephen Mayne.
It was a great delight to be 8 o'clock this morning walking down Hepburn Road and seeing a dozen workers from ACE Contracting working in a frenzied manner on our great new open space park that's going to be delivered there in the next few weeks. So we've been buying blocks there for over a decade to create this great open space, and it's a couple of million, and it's going to be one of the best parks in Manningham, and it's really exciting to see that in the program and being delivered. Also really pleased, really delighted how we've been leaning in on the Ruffy Park master plan. And then we finished the baseball pavilion. I know we're opening that formally in a couple of weeks, 3.4 million. Macedon and Jackson Court, in terms of our local activity centres, over $1 million being spent across the two of them, which is terrific. And I think it is noteworthy with the whole program that we're not doing any, big, massive look at this project stuff. We're doing lots of little projects, and that actually is quite challenging to manage because you've got lots of little contracts. So it's not easy to spend a lot of money doing lots of little projects. But that, I think, is the nature of the current program, where we don't have that big, $30 or $40 million project crowding out other programs. Going forward, I know probably our biggest project will be the outdoor master plan at Aqua Arena, which will come actively into these reports from the 24-5 year onwards. But it is terrific also to see that we're spending more than we historically have on the core operations like drainage and footpath. And I know that many in the community appreciate seeing those projects being delivered. So well done to the officers. Spending, we upped it by 10 million a year at the start of this term, from 45 to 55. That is quite a stretch. And if we can get above the 90% with this year's program, it'll be a really good achievement in a difficult environment.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Meva, did you want to close? If there's no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 13, experience and capability. There are no experience and capability reports. Item 14, Chief Executive Officer. 14.1, Audit and Risk Committee Chair Biannual Report. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Diamonte. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is another exemplary example of local government transparency. Back in the day, audit committees, would be never heard from, sort of secret councillor officer business. But this model of a biannual report from the independent chair of the committee, Andrew Dix, that comes to a public open council meeting for ventilation, discussion and endorsement is a very, very transparent process. So if you read the report, we've had two audit committee meetings over the intervening 6-month period. We've had reports looking at our grants management program, disaster recovery, drainage management and OC health and safety. And if you read the report again, you'll see some of the future reports will be on issues like contract management and our cybersecurity operations. We have changed our internal audit provider from Pitch Partners, which did a good job over the past 4 years, but we went out in an ordinary course of business to a competitive tender, and we have appointed Crowe Australasia to take on the new contract in terms of the internal audit program. So I think it's also note that Councillor Diamonte has joined the audit committee at the beginning of this year after Councillor Laura Mayne completed her 2-year term. And I'd like to thank independent member Evie Papadopoulos, who finished up at the end of last year, and we will be appointing a new independent member at the May council meeting. So the audit committee is going well. There are no red lights or flags to be worried about. and it's a very good, transparent process, and I think we should all think seriously about voting in favour of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Main. Councillor Deirdre De Monte, did you want to speak to the motion? Are there any speakers against the motion? Are there any speakers for the motion? If there are no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14.2, informal meetings of councillors. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Connellan.
I'd like to move the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert. Councillor Andrew Connellan, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Michelle Kleinert, did you want to speak? If there are no other speakers, then I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. 14.3, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover?
I move the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Main. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert. Councillor Laura Main. Councillor Michelle Kleinert. If there are no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 15, urgent business. There are no items for urgent business. Item 16, councillor reports and question time. Councillors, would anyone like to provide a report or raise a question? Councillor Laura Main.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate the Doncaster Tennis Club on their 100-year celebration. I attended the function last Sunday and it was lovely to meet members both past and present and hear about the club's rich history. And I must say, when flipping through the photo albums, it's clear that it's been a fun and fulfilling 100 years that has touched many members of the Manningham community in a very positive way. So 100 years is a very significant achievement, and I wish the club the best of luck with their next 100 years. Thank you.
Do I have any other councillor reports? Councillor Anna Chen.
I have two reports to make. On Saturday, 13th of April, and the Sikh community celebrating Vaisakhi at their Blackburn Sikh temple. It is a spring festival which happens on either 13th April or 14th of April every year, and it's one of the most important days in the Sikh calendar. It was a great pleasure and honor to be part of the celebration and for an insight into the Sikh culture and hospitality. I would like to thank the Sikh community for their good work of promoting multiculturalism, diversity, inclusiveness, and harmony. And of course, the mayor was there as well. So we had a good fun and had a lot of good food to eat. And last Friday, I have to mention, on the 19th of April, Doncaster Rovers held a sponsors night event. There were jumper presentations for some of their junior teams, a special guest speaker. Then the senior men's team took on Dandenong City. I'm pleased to see that the club's new committee is doing very well and are 70% up on members from last year and will hit 350, which is a number they forecast for 2025. They will probably are going to achieve to that numbers very soon. Now the club also has a under 16 girls teams and have already played 2 games. I would like to congratulate the teams and wish them all the very best for the new season. I'm most pleasing to see that 96% of Doncaster Rovers are made up of Manningham locals, and most of their sponsors are local businesses, and many first-year sponsors of the club, which makes the club a great community sporting club. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Do I have any other councillor reports? Councillor Deirdre De Monte.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my report is called Donut Day, and you might all remember, councillors and Madam Mayor, that one of my last meetings that I got to chair last year as the mayor, we had a young man, Teddy, come up to the lectern and respectfully asked if council would host a donut day. I'm very, very proud to announce that the Hepburn Park that Councillor Stephen Mayne referred to, as part of its opening on the 18th of August, Council is going to incorporate Donut Day. So we will work with local providers of donuts. I want to again thank Teddy. I thought he spoke very well and very confidently, and I love the whole. It's not a show, it's democracy in action. People come up, they have questions, council responds. We can't always respond as positively as we have had here, but I just think it's wonderful to see the process, and thank Teddy and thank council, and I hope there's lots of hot cinnamon donuts because they're my favourite.
Thank you, Councillor Deirdre De Monte. Do I have any other reports? Councillor Michelle Kleiner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sure that you're going to speak on Warrandyte Festival, so I won't take your thunder, but it was absolutely fantastic. The Mayoral Shield was on last Sunday, where I once thought it meant that the mayors in the area got together and played bowling to win the Mayoral Shield, but then I found out that no, it was not. It's where all the bowling clubs from the City of Manningham come together, have a day, and it's wonderful. Congratulations to the host bowling club, Templestowe Bowling Club, that won the Mayoral Shield, so that was absolutely wonderful. And if I might ask, Madam Mayor, in light of what's happened recently in New South Wales, in the tragic circumstances, 2 incidents in the last 2 weeks, and when things happen like that, there is a lot of coordination from local governments to work with the agencies, whether it's bollards and things, as we know, when sometimes things occur where there's a lot of people involved. And I just thought it might be a nice gesture that, Madam Mayor, that you might represent Manningham in writing to the mayors of both cities that are affected, to just say that our thoughts are with them as they take on leadership working with their communities at the ground, because it's been quite moving what we've seen on TV, and I just thought it might be a nice gesture because, yes, I think, you know, no matter what, we're in another state, but I think we've all been affected by that, and remember that. So it would be lovely if you
Thank you,
would accept
Michelle
that,
Kleiner.
ask.
Do I have any other questions or reports? Councillor Jeff Goff.
Yes, I'm wondering if I could get a bit of a report back to council on, I suppose, the public toilets. Now, we do have a public toilet program, and we're putting it through, and it's a very important element of livability of a city, especially for people that may need to utilise those facilities whilst out of home. However, there are some things that are contributing, and I'm wondering if we can actually get a report on whether this sort of thing could be included. And I'm talking about Morris William Reserve. Now, it's a major catchment for an area of Bulleen, and I wouldn't normally bring this up, but I've had a number of people in recent times talk to me about needing a public toilet down there, as there is nothing around. It's all uphill from down there because it's in the valley. And since we put in the new playgrounds and beautified the area and everyone's coming there, it's no longer just a local park for residents, but it's also a park for people that actually travel towards. And so whenever we put in infrastructure, I believe that we need to actually look at public toilets. And the same sort of thing happens then if I do that stretch to Swanson Street Reserve, which has just had the skate park facility upgraded there. And again, this is a place where people actually come to from far away, and therefore facilities may need to be provided. So basically, what I'm asking is if we can get a report back of whether we could have some sort of a policy input into when we are upgrading parks, and this is an example of 2 park upgrades, upgrading parks, that we actually look into, once it enters that, a trigger to ensure that there are some public facilities in those areas, and if that could come back to council.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I'll refer that to Director Andrew McMaster. Yep.
I'm sure I'll get a report.
Councillor Goff, I'll have to take that question on notice, but I can certainly come back to you about that.
Just to report into what we could do.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Do I have any other reports? Councillor Stephen Mayne.
So just around the grounds with some sport, I'd like to note that Fitzroy Doncaster Cricket Clubs had an excellent season with all 4 of their teams making the finals, which hasn't happened for many years, and they are obviously the only Premier cricket team in Manningham, so it's the best level of cricket, and to achieve that in an 18-team comp without paying a single player is a phenomenal effort by the committee, the players, the coaching staff, so well done. Congratulations to Warrandyte to Donvale for flogging Warrandyte in the local football derby at Warrandyte on Saturday. Your ward knocked off the Mayor's ward, very comprehensive victory. And also I did swing past the first win by Old Yarra Cobras women in the VAFA Premier Football. So one of the highest levels of football is the amateurs, metro-wide. Old Yarra Cobras is a merger of 2 Manningham clubs, so the Yarra Valley Old past students and the Manningham Cobras. Sometimes when clubs merge, you think, oh, are they struggling? A couple of years after the merger, and the strongest women's team in Manningham is the Old Yarra Cobras, and they had their first win on Saturday, flogging the powerhouse of the entire Monash University at Doncaster Reserve. So congratulations for achieving the highest level of football and pulling off women's football and pulling off a well-executed merger. I'd also like to congratulate Sarah Maben, who serves on our Recreation and Sport Advisory Committee, who on Saturday night was the Club Person of the Year at the Bull and Templestowe Cricket Club for the way she's nurtured and built up and developed the women's program there. It was thoroughly deserved. And also note that I think there's going to be 7 night games at Tedajani this year with the Bull and Templestowe Football Club. The vibe, the atmosphere is amazing when you have night football. We've invested $300,000 in the lights, build it, and they have come. The 7:15 game on a Friday night or the 5:30 twilight on Saturday, they are scheduling it. People are coming. They really appreciate the investment by the council in that facility, and they are coming in the numbers to watch them play at night.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Are there any other reports or questions, councillors? Then I will make a report. Yes, thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert. I do want to congratulate the Warrandyte Festival volunteer team who demonstrated a really strong sense of community, character, spirit and pride in this year's Warrandyte Festival with the theme River Creatures, which is all about living in harmony in the environment, and it was also celebrating life along the Warrandyte River, where humans live in harmony with the natural environment, but also the animals live in harmony with the Burrarung environment. So I'd just like to thank the Warrandyte Festival team for their dedication, commitment behind the scenes and creating a wonderful festival. And if I think about the responses that have been received on social media since the festival, it was about the honour of living in such a community. And I know the festival really wanted to just build community, and they've succeeded in that. Thank you to councillors who also attended. Item 17, confidential reports. There are no confidential reports. Therefore, I close our April council meeting. Thank you to all those members from the public and in person online who were here to join us. Thank you. That is close of meeting.